back to Swimming the Straight. I'm your host, Aitana, and you're tuning into Season 2 of our podcast. This season, we're diving into the incredible stories of women who have taken on extraordinary swimming challenges. From daring open water swims to breaking personal records, these women showcase unparalleled determination, strength, and resilience. Join us as we celebrate their achievements, explore their journeys, and get inspired by their stories of courage and triumph in the world of swimming. Get ready to be moved by tales of passion, perseverance, and the unyielding spirit of women in the water. Welcome to the first episode of Season 2 of Swimming the Straight. I'm your host, Aitana, and today we have an extraordinary guest to kick off our new season. Today's guest is Rebecca Hollingsworth, an ultramarathon swimmer whose impressive resume includes some of the most challenging swims in the world. Today, we'll dive deep into Rebecca's inspiring story, exploring the challenges and unwavering determination that drive her to push the limits of what's possible in the world of swimming.
Good morning, Rebecca. How are you? Thank you very much for being here with me in the Swimming the Straight podcast.
Oh, good evening.
So, good evening. Where are you at the moment?
Well, in Wellington.
Oh, nice. I miss Wellington. I'm in this very moment. I'm in Valencia in Spain, so we are just opposite sides of the planet. So thank you very much for joining us today to have a little chat about swimming. I've seen your resume and it's very impressive. So I'm very excited to talk about you and see, how your swimming life has been and what got you to swim. And my first question is always the same. Have you always been a swimmer?
Mostly. So I learned, in my grandparents' swimming pool as a little toddler. So sort of goes back to then. But I did give up when I was 15 and didn't really get back into it until I sort of started working after university. So I have that sort of interlude in the middle there. But apart from that, I've grown up with swimming and it's something that I love. And I just keep getting deeper into it.
I can see that. We will go through your different swims and how your swimming career has evolved, and we'll see how you gotten to where you are at the moment. So when you were swimming when you were young, were you doing just swimming pool swimming?
Yes, yeah. So just the sort of swimming club swimming. I was always a bit average, to be honest. I never really got super competitive, but I didn't really know ocean swimming was a thing. People at school didn't do that. I did swim in Taranaki, so surf club was quite a big thing, but I was never in the surf club scene.
So then tell us, how do you go from swimming as a toddler in your grandparents' swimming pool to do things like double taupo, which we will talk about later, but it's like, whoa, okay, this is next level.
Well, when I was just starting work, I had a friend who sort of got me into back into swimming. So she was sort of doing a little bit of triathlon in Wellington. And I think it helped to have someone else who was doing the sport. And I think she got me along to an evening swim squad at Karori, I think it was at the time. And it just went from there. I got a wetsuit and signed up for a Ocean Swim Series swim. So it wasn't anything sort of like big revelation that, I'm back swimming. It was more, this is something I wanted back in my life. I'd actually been a swim teacher at university. So I'd been getting back in the water, teaching children to swim. But when you're a swim teacher in the water for 3 hours with little kids, you don't really want to swim yourself.
Yes.
So I'd sort of had in the back of my mind, when I get a proper job, I might get back swimming. And I think having that friend there who sort of encouraged me and got me back into the water was kind of all that I needed. And then I discovered this world of ocean swimming and really loved it. And I did have one season where I tried a triathlon. I thought, oh, I'll give this thing a go. It was a disaster. I went from like in that first bunch out of the water, to running past my bike and then having to find it, and then having everyone pass me on the cycle and the run. And I went from, that top 10 or whatever, wherever I was in the pack, I can't remember, to like nearly last in the women's field. And so that was sort of my thinking around, well, let's stick to what I'm good at and maybe go longer and try new challenges in the swimming world.
Wow, definitely. Well, that's pretty interesting because I did something kind of similar. I started with triathlon and the same. The swim was amazing, and then with the bike, I was like, no, I'm just gonna stick to the ocean swimming. So, but yeah, then it's very impressive because your first long swim was, if my notes are correct, your first swim is Rottnest in Australia.
Yes, so that was my first ultra swim. I sort of did a 10 kilometer 10 years ago. So I've just done the epic swim in Taupo, and that was my 10-year anniversary from doing the 10 kilometer. And then, Rottnest was in 2016, and that was my first time doing like a 20 kilometer.
Like to celebrate your anniversary of the 10K, let's double that, all right? That's such a cool swim. Actually, I was in Rottnest a few years back, and it's beautiful. Like the water is beautiful, but it's a little bit scary, isn't it? It's quite open water, and just swimming to it's like the real ocean for me. Like I felt it like the real ocean.
It's actually a very cool event, and it's the biggest swim event in the Southern Hemisphere. So you're dealing with like hundreds, if not in the thousands of swimmers, because they've got relay teams as well as all the soloists. And I think I kind of had some logic that sort of talked myself into the swim, and it went something like this, that I'll be in the middle of the field, so I won't have any concerns of sharks because they'll go for the people on the outer edges. But then the following year, apparently the middle of the field was evacuated because of a shark sighting. So my logic was flawed completely. But they have like helicopters looking for sharks, and they have like the biggest sort of, it's quite an organization in terms of the safety and the organization of that event.
Then what I want to know, what is like, what I'm interested in is knowing how you go from swimming 10K, which is a huge achievement, don't get me wrong, and then 10 years later you go like, okay, now I'm going to start with the ultra marathons. I'm going to go to 20K, and then I'm up from there. Because can you give us a little bit of a, before you answer my question, can you give us a little bit of a run of your swimming career? What have you done? And the highlights.
The highlights, okay. So I've actually got a photo from just before the 10K, and it was me and my friend Laura, and we were in our wetsuits, and we were looking very nervous. And that's my like pre-entering the marathon swimming world. It's quite funny. But I think the story of my swimming is a lot of positive peer pressure and good community. So Mike Cochrane, who lots of people know in New Zealand, did Rottnest the year before me. And that was sort of inspiring. And that sort of got me thinking, oh, I could have a go at that. And then, so if I just run through my CV, so I did Rottnest, and then I actually went overseas. So I went and lived in the UK for a little bit. So I did this big swim, but then I didn't have any immediate plans because I was going to do this overseas time. But I think when I was overseas, it wasn't like the most, it wasn't quite the experience that I had in mind, because my dad was quite sick at the time, and it was actually quite tough, and I didn't really settle into London life. And so actually swimming was quite a nice way of feeling a little bit normal. I got back into my swimming when I was in London, and I did Windermere. So the Windermere is a 17 kilometer swim, in the Lake District, and that was really cool. It wasn't too cool. It was 17 degrees. And then I signed up for the English Channel when I was there, but I never actually did it, so I decided to come home. And so when I came home, I did the Waiheke Islands. So that was another 20K. So there was like a couple of years there where it was sort of like that 20K distance. So I didn't immediately go, oh, I'm going to aim for big, massive swims. I guess I had other life goals and priorities, but I still really love swimming, and I still wanted to challenge myself. And when I came back to New Zealand, I was home, but I still wanted to do a bit of traveling. And so I'd heard lots of good things about the SCAR swim series in Arizona. And that's 4 lakes, so 4 marathon swims over 4 days, and it adds up to about 60 kilometers of swimming. And that was really fun. That was 2019. I went over and did that, and I had my friend come with me in kayak, and then I took a camping.
That sounds fun.
We are still friends after it, which is says something, because
yes.
at the end of some of those swims with the heat that you get in Arizona, she was actually more exhausted than me. And then I took her camping, and the first night we had a big thunderstorm, and she admitted to not having been camping since she was a toddler.
Nice.
So that sort of pairing the swim with a bit of travel. And then I suppose I then was back in Wellington, and in Wellington, we've got quite a hub of marathon swimmers, and we swim with Phil Rush, who's pretty legendary in the sport. And it's pretty inevitable that you're going to start thinking about different goals, maybe like the length of Taupo. And I'd already being in Wellington, being back in New Zealand since for a couple of years, for 18 months about that time, I'd seen people do Taupo, and I'd sort of got a little bit of jealousy that they're doing like such a cool looking swim. And so I was really keen on that, but I just bought my house, so I had this massive mortgage over me, and didn't have lots of money, because these swims are quite expensive. But I also had a friend that I was doing lots of training with, and she was about to go to university, so she didn't have any money either. So we thought we'd do a tandem and split the cost. And so Phil doesn't normally recommend a tandem, but it actually worked out really well, because we did all the training. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No. I was going to say that just for the listeners to understand how this tandem thing goes. What it is that you guys get in the water together and you swim together the whole swim. Is that right?
Yes. So it's harder. It's potentially harder than a solo, because if something happens with your mate, then you've got to slow down, or you've got to keep at an even pace.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. But that was actually a very successful swim. So there were some times where the pace was a little bit different, but Taupo's it's not cold. It's like 18, 19 degrees, maybe even 20 sometimes. So we sort of managed that, and we sort of walked out of the water. I think Bree will say, yeah, Bree walked out, and then she sat down straight away. But we walked out of the water together, and that was quite a cool occasion. And then COVID hit.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
we probably don't need to talk too much about COVID, but
yeah.
I think what COVID did mean was a lot more like looking at New Zealand goals and things that we can do in New Zealand, especially because like New Zealand was still we were still doing stuff because we'd kept it kind of at the border for a long time. So while everyone else was going into lockdown, we had some lockdowns, but we had that time where we didn't have lockdowns as well, and we could plan to do some swims, and obviously in Wellington the iconic swim is the Cook Strait, but most years that's just booked up with people from overseas wanting to do the Ocean 7, so it's quite hard to get in on that unless you want to like try to be a little floater, so like try to sort of get in where there might be a gap but it's quite hard to train for. So it does help to be able to plan for it. But obviously in 2021, that summer, there was no international people. And I thought I might try my luck again. And I suggested to another friend who was also part of our little swim group, maybe doing a tandem. Well, because like Topua had succeeded, like why wouldn't a tandem?
Why not?
Straight? But
just,
that was
yeah, just for our listeners as well, because they might be not aware of what Cook Strait is to say, I always like to explain Cook Strait because it's one of my favorite places on Earth. So Cook Strait is the body of water that separates or joins the two islands in New Zealand, and it's one of the, I think it's one of the hardest swims from the 7 swims, because you have like semi-cold waters. It's funny that you say it's not that cold, it's 17. It's like, well, when you have to spend like 8 hours in the water, like 17 degrees is pretty cold. But also Cook Strait has very strong currents, and that is what it makes it a little bit harder to swim. So anyway, just keep going. You decided to do it in tandem as well, because the Taupo had been a success.
It's a hard swim, but then you chuck a tandem in the mix.
Exactly. Why not?
Why not? And that was quite eventful, actually. So we like swam, like just to illustrate how crazy the currents are in Cook Strait, we swam 7 kilometers in the first hour. We were going that fast. But unfortunately, crazy. We were going not in the right direction. We hit the Cape Terafiti. Well, not hit the Cape, but we got too close to it. And you get all this funny water there. And we basically then stayed stationary for over an hour. You sort of see the tracker, and there's all these dots that are close together because we weren't moving.
Yeah, that is pretty crazy. Like when I was living in New Zealand and you guys doing, not you specifically, but the swimmers were doing Cook Strait. I used to work with forecasts and meteorology, and I used to just put the tracker up and a forecast of the currents just to see how you guys were going to do. And it was like, oh my goodness, if they don't go a little bit faster, they're going to start going backwards. So yeah, just for the swimmers to understand that swimming in open water is not only the swim itself, that you can prepare and you can train, and then you get there, and then you have to kind of, see what is out there and work with all the things that the environment is going to throw at you, like cold and waves and currents. And so it's a whole new level of complexity, I would say.
Yeah, and what happened in that swim was after, like in the evening, the cold got to my friend, and so she was slowing down, and I was having to do this little sort of swim out from bone back. So I'm like sort of doing this holding position almost, which wasn't very easy, but. Yeah, so she abandoned that swim, and then it got a lot easier once she hopped out. But she's a great swimmer, and she went back 8 months later and dominated it. She did an awesome job. It just wasn't her day when we tried to do it together. And I think afterwards, Phil sort of vowed never to take another tandem on the Cook Strait. So.
Well, exactly as we were saying, like if you throw in the mix also that you have to sync with another person, then it's just like it gets more and more complicated. So anyway, like this is well, amazing, all these things, and I have so many questions already to ask you, like because after that you did double Taupo, is that correct?
Yeah, so the borders were still closed, and I felt really good after Cook Strait, and so I started to think about other goals. And it's quite funny, I wasn't the only one thinking about big long goals. There was sort of 2 other people who were thinking about really long swims as well. And
how long are we talking about? Like it's just because for the listeners, just to understand how long is a long swim. If 20K is not a long swim, what it is?
So I probably swam about 40K when I did Cook Strait, and then I started to think about maybe a cook straight and back. So you do it twice. But that's very difficult to get the weather window for that. So we kind of needed a plan B, and the plan B was Lake Taupo twice. So it's, starting in Taupo, swimming to Turangi, and then swimming back. So it's longer than a two-way cook straight. It's 80 kilometers.
80 kilometers.
Yeah, but you had more predictability around the weather windows. And the bit of the warmer water. So we could actually do that in April. So right at the end of the season. So, yeah.
So 80 kilometers swimming, which is, it's kind of, for my brain, it's not, I cannot even imagine how that feels or how that works. But like
I couldn't either when I was planning it. I just
maybe that's a good thing, actually. One of my first questions is, how do you train physically and mentally? Because the closest that I have in my brain is maybe like a marathon runner that you always hear that they don't swim the whole distance. They don't run the whole distance, blah, blah, blah. But how do you train? How do you prepare mentally and physically for a 80K swim? Just, please enlighten us.
I don't think I don't know if it was that different to my training for my other swims, to be honest. There is like a limit to, I guess, how much time I can give my training because I'm working full time. Like I did do more training. It was different, but it didn't feel different. But I didn't do like other people for those sort of distances have done like 100-kilometer training weeks. But I didn't go close to that. I did a 3-week period where I did like some 50, maybe a 50, 60, 50, with some really high mileage. But you sort of have to trust your body. So you needed, like, it's not all about that swim. It was actually about, I had several years of doing training for big swims. And so my training for my 80-kilometer was building off that history and adding a little bit more on. And then I don't know if I did anything specific for mental training, but the way that we managed it, and it's quite helpful having Phil to talk to beforehand as well, because he's done that swim, and so he can talk strategies as well. But I didn't really think beyond the portion of the swim that I was doing. So at the start of we started around lunchtime, or 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock maybe, just after lunch. And all my concern was in those first few hours was, I'm just getting into this. I'm just enjoying this portion of my swim, because you can't afford to think about the big thing.
Yeah, I love. Yeah, definitely, I love that. How long does it take to swim 80 hours? Just to put a little bit of reference.
27 hours and 48 minutes.
Wow. Just wow. 27 hours and 48 minutes. You definitely just need to think about the next little bit. You cannot think about the whole thing. Otherwise, just like, I guess it's way too big. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a couple of things to look forward to. Like I had like some apple crumble, like apple pie type, for when I visited the island. So I don't know if anyone who knows Taupo, there's an island in the middle of the lake, and you don't visit it literally, but you just see it forever, and it's like it can be a mind game. And so I thought I'd have like a little treat for when I was at the island.
So you were eating the pie when you were in the water, because we've discussed this with different swimmers and how you eat, and there are some swimmers that they say they cannot eat anything kind of solid. They just kind of drink those gels. Oh, this is cool that you could eat like proper.
Very glamorous. Like they didn't give me any cutlery.
That's so good. You can just shove it.
But I think it is important to have some real food on those really long swims, because you are going that time without proper meals, really. And I did have a little bit of pasta when we did the turnarounds. So when you you can sort of get out of the water for like 10 minutes, although I didn't really. I sort of hopped out and hopped back in, and then in the shallows had this little bit of pasta. But yeah, some real food.
Nice. Some real food. And what about the cold? Because like, and I would like to discuss a little bit the ice mile, because I'm fascinated about cold water swimming. But when you spend 27 hours in the water, even though the water is warm, and I'm quoting this warm because of course it's never too warm, but when you spend so much time in the water, you lose heat and with the exercise. So how do you manage the cold? Did you get cold, or how do you?
It did get to the air temperature on Taupo can get very cold overnight, and I did have one feed where they gave me the cold drink, and it was like ice cold. So I was like, next time,
Please.
warm drink, please. So like things like, you know, when it's not, when you're not necessarily cold in the water, but you know it's sort of cold out there. You know, I was doing warm drinks at that time to sort of help. And then I don't think it was really much of a concern on that swim. Like I did have some time sort of near the end where I was getting a bit tired, but I don't remember being cold. I do remember it taking a long time for me to like get my dry robe off after the swim. So obviously I was all wrapped up warm after when I hopped out of the water, and it was a good few hours before I felt like I was going to take that off. So it probably took me a little while for my body to warm itself back up, but I don't really remember being cold in that swim, and it was like 19 degrees, so I don't think cold was kind of an issue on that one.
Okay.
But it was kind of, I was expecting it on Wanaka, so the year after I tried a shorter swim, but it was down south, so Lake Wanaka is in the South Island, and I was expecting some cold water for most of the swim, and I was kind of mentally preparing for that. And then it was a really hot summer and it just was never cold.
This is so funny because now that I've been living in Spain for a year, now I lived 12 years in New Zealand, so for me that was kind of warm. But now that I'm back in Spain, and in the summer we're having like in the winter, sorry, we're having like 22 degrees temperatures. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. Like when you guys talk about it was warm, it was 19 degrees. I'm like, yeah, right, whatever. So what I'm going with this with this is that you get kind of you get used to the cold. I mean, you start swimming, and then at the beginning you think that this is going to be the worst thing ever, but then you get used to it, and your body like gets used to it. Because how I have one just little question: how long was Wanaka?
That's 44 kilometers.
44 kilometers. Wow, that's amazing. And my next question is going like building through the cold, and you did like an ice mile. Can you please explain to the swimmers what an ice? That is something that it fascinates me, and I know that you guys in Wellington, there are a few of you that have been training for that. And can you please explain what it is, and what it involves?
I was never actually going to do the ice mile. Actually, I was like, that's stupid.
So wow, do you mean that it's stupid to try to swim 1 mile under 5 degrees water? I don't know why you say that.
This was the first year we sort of got I know it's been around more than that, but this is the first year like a good group of people got together to do it's sort of an ice swimming event, and I sort of got roped in, and I was like, oh, I can help encourage people. I can't remember what I said, but then somehow it's, you know, the peer pressure and the this is going to be, they're going in camper vans and it's going to be like a holiday, and maybe I need a holiday, so maybe I'll go and do an ice swim because I need a holiday. That was kind of the logic.
Right.
It does require like a lot of winter swimming, so you're kind of ready to do those sort of distances in under 5 degrees. But I'd been doing that anyway, and I'd just done Cook Strait, so I felt like I was pretty good for it. And that was for that event. I did because you have to qualify for the distances. So one day I did the 500 meters. And I feel like the 500 meters was the hardest event because it was like my body going, what on earth are you doing? So my fingers went all funny and I don't know. And then maybe the 1 kilometer was my favorite event because maybe my body was now expecting what was going to go for it. And I just really enjoyed the 1 kilometer.
Enjoy 5 degrees water. This is something new. This is something, like there is something.
And then the 1 mile, that was that was hard. I can't really remember much about it now, but I do have lots of photos of me trying to warm up in the camper van afterwards. And we were very strategic with the camper van. So we were always the last one at the lake. So me and this is actually my friend who I did TOEFL with. We were sharing the camper van and we were just not as organized as everyone else. So we would always arrive there last. But for some reason, that meant that we got the sunniest parking spot.
Nice.
So our camper van was like sunroom. It was fantastic. I've got photos of being all wrapped up and re-warming. And I do remember telling my friend off for not giving me enough hot water bottles, even though there was like 4 at my feet.
But, well, cold water does funny things to you, right?
Yeah. And since then, a big contingent of swimmers from Wellington have gone and done the ice swimming, which is quite exciting. And one of the cool things about it is it's very much, you're gonna get to know your fellow swimmers. Like you have to rely on each other. You're gonna need your friends' help to get changed. So it's actually quite a fun event, and you get to know everyone, and it's good.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I like the most about all the interviews that I've had in the show and what I'm hearing as well here is what you said at the beginning is about the community and your peers, and it's there is a sense of community and supporting each other and gently pushing you to go further. As you said before, it's inevitable that you eventually are going to do some crazy swims, and I find that is very very encouraging. That is a very inclusive and supportive community.
Yeah, and it's not like everyone's going to go and do like a 40-kilometer TOEFL swim. So in Wellington we've got the washing machines group, which is quite a large group of people who are regularly swimming in the ocean, and then we've got within that we call ourselves the Spud Buds, sort of some of the more crazy hardcore swimmers. But in Taupo on the last week, you saw people from that broader washing machines group who weren't necessarily into the long distances challenging themselves to the 5 kilometer and the 10 kilometer, and to them that is getting crazy. It's not quite 80 kilometers crazy, but it is quite cool to see them challenging themselves.
Exactly, yeah, because at the end, like with swimming, I've seen people challenging themselves even with 1K. Like if you've never swum before, or if you're not used to it, just swimming 1K in Wellington can be very challenging. So I think it's a very nice environment of improvement and setting some goals and going to them for them, even though there are different goals.
There's always someone to encourage you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I have another question. Why do you enjoy swimming then? It's kind of a random question, but I want to know what gets you back into the water again and again, or what do you enjoy? And
I don't know. Maybe it's like a sense of, I think it's so intertwined with who I am now. And so it is a sense, so it depends on my context. So, when I was in London, and when things aren't going so well, it's a sense of familiarity and home. And then, when I'm with friends here in Wellington, it's, being part of that community. And sometimes it's just as simple as on those long swims, sort of, getting into the groove and not having to think about anything. That I can be here all day doing this swim. This is what I'm here doing. I don't have to think about anything else. Yeah, I enjoy it. And it's kind of my sport. I don't think I'd do very well with anything that required hand-eye coordination. So I found something that I do well, and I can challenge myself, and I can be in my zone. And
yeah, I love that. I was just writing something about swimming yesterday, and I was saying or writing something similar, that for me, in my case, when I go swimming, like the world disappears. So it's this kind of time that you can just be in silence and just focusing in one thing and just doing that thing and doing it well. So yeah, I like that very much.
Yeah.
And what's next? What is in the in the horizon?
So it's been a very weird summer, because I have been swimming, but I haven't been training. Like, I haven't been doing any big distances, and everyone else is doing big distances. And so I'm terrible at comparing myself to other people, and I shouldn't, but I compare myself to all those people who are doing lots of training. And I tell myself, oh, you're so slow at the moment, Rebecca. But I have to remind myself that I'm not quite starting my training just yet, because my swim's not until the end of June. So that English Channel swim that I'd planned like back in 2018 is going to happen end of June, start of July. So it's been delayed a few times. I've had a very tolerant skipper. And then, because it feels like it's not big enough challenge, I'm going to do the North Channel 4 weeks later.
Of course. Just for the listeners that don't know, the English Channel is crossing from England to France. How long is that?
That's 30, I think it's 35 or 36. And then the North Channel is about the same distance, but it's colder.
Yeah, I was going to say, but.
And jellyfish,
yeah, exactly. So I think the North Channel, for me, this is one of the hardest swims because of the cold. I like to think, when I hear you guys talking about this, I like to think, not if I could do it, but if I was like, I will never train for those things, don't get me wrong, but then I like to put it in my brain for 1 second to see how it feels. And when you guys talk about the North Channel, I'm like, yeah, no, not that one. That's too cold. So what is the North Channel? Just please give us a little bit of an idea.
So North Channel is the Northern Ireland Scotland channel, and I hadn't really planned to do it until so Grania, one of the swimmers in Wellington, did it, and then I got jealous. That looks like a cool swim. And so I signed up for that one as well.
Nice. It's so interesting. I got jealous about someone swimming like for hours in 6 degrees water. Yes, that is something else. So funny. Nice. So that when English Channel would be end of June, did you say? And then
well, the window's across June and July, so it's right at the end of June, and then the North Channel's almost exactly a month later.
Nice.
And then I am planning I've got a friend who's going with me, and we're going to do some traveling in Scotland, so we'll find some lakes to jump into.
Of course. Nice. Well, this was really cool. Thank you very much. Is there anything else that you would like to add?
No, that's all good. Keep up your swimming, Aitana.
Yes. Well, I'm getting there. It's, I think what you said about the community is very important. Like, because I have been traveling in the last year and moving around, it's been a little bit hard for me to find a community, but I think now I'm going to be a little bit more settled. So yes, definitely. Probably will not get to your distances, but like it's definitely, you are an inspiration. So yes, I will keep it in mind. Well, thank you very much again, Rebecca, for being here in the show and Swimming the Straight podcast. And please keep us updated on how this summer goes.
Well, our winter, but summer, yeah.
Yeah, our northern hemisphere summer for when you are around this side of the planet.
Okay, we'll do.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Swim in the Straight. We hope these stories of incredible women have inspired you. If you have any questions or suggestions, please send us an email at hello@aitanaforthen.com. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast. Until next time, remember, just keep swimming. I'm Aitana, and this has been Swim in the Straight.